still there? To delete this message, press 7. To save it in the archives, press 9. To hear more options, press 0.
What are you talking about?
Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Karen and thank you so much for checking out this video. Guys, before we get started, as always, I just want to remind you to thumbs up this video, to subscribe to my channel, and to, of course, follow me on Instagram at TheRealKco. So with that being said, let's get straight into today's video. So today's topic is a little bit more difficult for me to talk to you guys about, and that's because it's something that I'm very, very sensitive about. It's something that I've been battling for the past 5 or 6 years now that has completely taken over my life and prevented me from partaking in regular day-to-day activities and really feeling normal compared to other people. I do not have it in a localized form like some people do. So a lot of people will have it, let's say, in the elbows or behind the knees or on their hands. I was fortunate enough to get a bit more of a rare form that covers the entire body pretty much. So I was covered from my neck all the way down to my toes. So I really wanted to make this video and open up about it and share my photos, share my videos, share my treatments with you guys in hopes that maybe someone else who's suffering and really is going home every day crying like I used to, maybe help them feel that there's hope out there, that there's something that can change, and there are things out there that can help fix the situation. So with that being said, guys, let's just get straight into it. So before I was diagnosed with psoriasis, I had obviously heard the word before. I mean, I recognized it as the word with the silent P, but it really didn't mean anything to me more than that. So I pretty much come to learn that it is a chronic autoimmune disorder, which basically means that your body takes healthy cells and recognizes them as invaders and starts attacking them. So basically, the autoimmune response from your body is to start shedding its cells a lot more quickly. So the turnover, basically, instead of taking the span of a few weeks, happens in the span of a few days. I have a form that's called guttate psoriasis. Now, guttate psoriasis doesn't really come in plaque forms like the typical psoriasis, so to speak, that you're used to seeing. So I would get like little teardrop sized lesions, and it started on my forearms here. And at first I thought maybe, I had some sort of allergy. I was taking a lot of sun at the time, and I thought maybe it was a heat rash. Like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. So as time progressed, pretty quickly, I'd say over the next 2 to 3 weeks, my entire body was covered from head to toe, especially on the trunks, on the sides of my abdomens. I have one abdomen, but on the side of my abdomen, and it started going down on the inside of my thighs, and eventually it started reaching all the way up to my neck. So it's safe to say that I felt like a walking freak show at that point in time. I'll put a picture up here on the screen of what my psoriasis looked like when I was in like full outbreak mode. It was actually a little bit worse than this, but I had started some home remedies that didn't get rid of the condition, but it helped make it a little better. So it was a little worse than this, but this gives you a pretty good idea of what I had on my body from head to toe. So they're really like pimple sort of looking bumps, blisters, pimples, welts. I don't know what the proper term is, but that's what they look like. And sometimes they would look like they were even filled with water, and then at some point they would dry up and they would flake off in these like silver flakes. So basically it was like the skin was turning over way too quickly, is kind of what the dermatologist at the time had explained to me. So anyways, I lived like this, basically covered from head to toe for the longest time. Most of my friends didn't know. Nobody really had any clue. It was really just my family that knew, and I would cover myself in sweaters, scarves, long pants. I would never wear t-shirts. I would never wear shorts. I just covered it up as much as possible and tried to pretend like everything was normal, which it really wasn't. A lot of people more commonly have a form of psoriasis called plaque psoriasis. So that's the one you're probably used to seeing, that's more in like localized patches that you'll see either on people's hands, commonly between the elbows. So I actually have a form called guttate psoriasis. So guttate psoriasis is actually triggered generally by, well, there's different factors, but it's commonly triggered by upper respiratory conditions. So in my case, it was caused by strep throat. So I had strep throat, and I hope I'm explaining this right, but from what I remember the doctor explaining is that if your antibiotics that you're taking to cure your strep throat don't completely kill the virus that's in your system, your body can basically react by developing this autoimmune disease, which manifests itself as cutaneous psoriasis. So I'm very lucky to have had this, and as soon as it popped up, I also got psoriasis all over my scalp, which I actually do still have. I haven't fully managed to deal with that yet. I'm actually still working on it, so if any of you guys have any good tips for that, please let me know. While psoriasis and eczema are not the same condition, a lot of what triggers psoriasis also triggers eczema. A lot of some of the treatment options as well apply to eczema as well. If any of you watching do have eczema, you can definitely benefit from some of the information that I'm about to share with you. So with all of these conditions, there's a whole bunch of different trigger points that can actually cause flare-ups. So I want to go through a few of them so that you guys understand that once you have this autoimmune disease, there's not really cures for it. You can go into remission for a period of time, and it's very likely that it can come back. So it becomes this whole cycle that you go through. But it's important to understand the various trigger points that can cause this, and that way you can kind of prevent as many flare-ups as possible. I'm really speaking from more experience than anything else. I mean, obviously I've done research over the course of the years that justify everything that I'm telling you guys, but I'm also not a doctor, so there could very well be different trigger points for you guys. So number one, as far as trigger points, is stress, and this is probably the worst of them because, you know, we all work or we go to school or we have busy lives and we have, you know, feelings and relationships and family problems and whatever it is in our lives that cause so much stress. And stress is actually a huge trigger point for psoriasis and eczema flare-ups. And the problem is that the psoriasis and the eczema as well, in turn, causes stress. So it creates this whole vicious cycle. So you gotta be wary of your stress levels, which I know is easier said than done, but definitely try to find a means to handle that a little better. Find your outlet. For me, my outlet is the gym. When I'm angry, I go there and it really calms me down. Some people it's yoga, for other people it could be cooking. Whatever it is, find something that works for you. So a second big trigger for psoriasis flare-ups is diet. And this will differ from person to person because we're all individuals. We all have different levels of intolerances and we all have different digestive systems, so we're going to handle things very differently. It's said that when you are subject to this kind of disease, that you should be a little bit more wary of what you eat in terms of meat products, for example, especially red meat. Red meat is known to cause a lot of inflammation. So I did a lot of research on this years ago, and I opted to go on more of a plant-based diet and not eliminating meat. Well, I did at one point in time, like for a solid 6 to 8 months, I went on a pescatarian diet, and I have to say that my skin, both in terms of psoriasis as well as acne, was better than it's ever looked. So there was definitely helped in itself. Also consuming less dairy for me, as well as not eating too much gluten. I'm not really well informed on the whole celiac or gluten intolerance thing, but I know that my body doesn't handle it well. I bloat a lot, my skin flares up a lot. So definitely diet plays a huge role in psoriasis, and you need to realize that whatever your skin is manifesting on the outside, that it's usually caused by stuff on the inside. So if you are in this situation, definitely keep a food diary. That helped me. I log my food anyways for gym and fitness purposes, so it was a lot easier for me to do that. Maybe for you guys, it might be a little bit harder to remember to do those things. But if you keep a food diary, and you can kind of track when you're having really bad flare-ups, and you can determine maybe what foods are causing issues for you. Obviously, you can go to a doctor, you can get an allergy test, and determine if you do have actual dietary intolerances or allergies. The next trigger point kind of ties in with diet, and this I think was definitely one of the most difficult for me personally was alcohol. So alcohol is very dehydrating for the skin, and that's obviously one of the issues when you go through conditions like psoriasis and eczema, is that we have to keep the skin as hydrated and as moisturized as possible, and alcohol really does the exact opposite. So that is definitely a huge problem, especially, you know, the past 5-6 years. I was pretty young. I was going out a lot. I was, you know, attending a lot of parties, and I wanted to drink. I wanted to do what everyone else was doing. But I knew that if I did those things, it would put me in a bad situation the next day, and either I did them anyways, accepting that, or I didn't. So what I've noticed is that certain alcohols are worse than others. For example, beer is an absolute like no-go for me. Even now to this day, with the treatments that I'm doing to manage it, I know that if I consume beer, that I'm going to have spots on my body the next day. I don't know if it's because the combination between the yeast and the carbonation in the beer, I have no idea, but it really does not mesh well with these sort of conditions. There's also red wine, which is so unfortunate because I absolutely love wine, but certain wines that are very, very high in sulfates especially, those ones cause me to break out. So that's something to bear in mind and something to keep an eye on if this may apply to you. And the last trigger point that I think is really worth mentioning is undoubtedly the weather. So for anyone who has these conditions, you've probably noticed that your situation is probably a little better in the summer and is worse in the winter. And that's because these conditions get better with moisture as well as sun exposure as well. So the drier the air is and the colder it is, and we're not being exposed to those sun rays, obviously our condition gets even worse, which makes it very, very, very important to stay as moisturized as possible and be drinking as much water as possible. Unfortunately, not all of us can live on a beach somewhere, even though I feel like I should. I've tried to convince my husband, I tried to tell him that my condition, you know, it just means that I'm destined to live somewhere hot, but he's still not having it. So what have I tried? What haven't I tried, I think is more the question. I've had a good solid 5 years almost of trying out all kinds of crazy stuff, and I'm gonna mention some of them to you that are probably the most common. So the first obviously being, you see your doctor, you have eczema, you have psoriasis, chances are they're gonna prescribe you a steroid cream, like a cortisone cream. So I definitely got those subscriptions. I tried them. Did they work? They helped a little bit. I'd say that they helped slow the cell turnover. But the problem with my case specifically, and if you have any one of these conditions that isn't localized, is like I had it from my neck all the way to my toes. How the hell was I gonna take this cream and apply it on my body from top to bottom every day? It just didn't make sense. And cortisone creams as well, they're not good for long-term use either because they do thin the skin. So it was kind of this battle, and honestly at some point I just kind of stopped applying it to my body because I couldn't. There was just too much to be treating with a cream. While we're on the topic of creams, I wanted to mention this because I know that I came across this on the internet, and I'm sure that a whole bunch of other people did too. So there's also this Chinese herbal medicinal cream that I tried called Jing. I don't know how to pronounce that, but this is what it looks like, and it's basically this yellow colored ointment, and I heard that this worked really well for people, so I naturally ordered it. I started using it and I loved it so much. Like, guys, I have an entire box here. Like, I loved it so much. And then I found this warning on the internet, and I will read it to you guys, basically, that this stuff here, Chinese herbal medicinal Yigenering cream, basically there's a warning issued by the Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency stating that anybody who's using this should stop immediately because it's been found to contain an undisclosed steroid and 2 antifungal ingredients. So guys, all to say, does this stuff work if you read about it on the internet? It definitely does, but I kind of stopped using cortisone creams because they weren't good for my skin, and I definitely wasn't about to continue to use this magic herbal mystery cream on my body without knowing what's in it. So like, you try this at your own risk. This stuff is really going in the garbage at this point. As other topicals go, I did also try coal tar ointments and lotions. So the one that I was using is called, I don't know if this is focusing here, it's called MG217. I've also tried psoriasis too, so this you can get over the counter at the pharmacy. Does it work? These honestly worked more than I found that the cortisone did for me. It also really helped with the itch. So this is really like an old school sort of treatment that's been around. I think coal tar was around since the 1920s. I think that's what I read. But anyways, this stuff here basically works by stopping the itch and slowing down the growth of these cells. So it helps, but you're literally going to be walking around smelling like a gasoline station, and you literally need to worry that if someone lights a cigarette or something next to you, that you might catch fire. So if you're okay with that, and you're okay smelling, and you're okay catching fire potentially anywhere that you go and leaving your clothes all super greasy, this is definitely good. Not for the whole body like I was using it. I was using it on like large areas of my body. I know that in large amounts coal tar can be carcinogenic. It's in very, very small concentrations here, so it's safe. Otherwise it wouldn't be sold. So yeah, this definitely works short term if you do have flare-ups or something to deal with. So I think one of the craziest things that I actually tried, like I told you, I spent a lot of time on the internet, and I came across this psoriasis inspire forum. It was like basically a club that you join online, and you got to talk to people who were just like you, suffering through the same thing. And there was this woman who basically ran the whole thing, and she told her story about how she cleared up her psoriasis naturally. So if you signed up on the site and everything was completely free, you got this pamphlet and it gave you all the instructions on how to cure your psoriasis. So naturally I was like, yeah, I'm signing up for this, I'm doing it, whatever. I was desperate at the time, and I signed up, I got the pamphlet, and I started reading it. There were a few steps to this program. Some of them were pretty, regular stuff. So it told me to cut out certain kinds of foods like meats and dairies and all of that, gluten, a few other things that are known to cause inflammatory effects in the body, which was pretty normal. But this other sort of steps in the routine were referred to more as the miracle steps. So basically it's known that there may be a connection between vitamin D deficiency and psoriasis. I don't know about eczema, but psoriasis for sure. So it hasn't been proven to cause psoriasis, but there is a link between psoriasis and vitamin D. People with psoriasis having vitamin D deficiency, but not necessarily that vitamin D deficiency is causing psoriasis. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. But anyways, so basically people started taking vitamin D supplements, because some of you probably noticed that we get most of our vitamin D through the sun, and your psoriasis is better in the summer versus the winter. And the logic kind of makes sense. Even if we're not paying attention to the sciencey aspect of it, it kind of makes sense. So I was like, yeah, for sure, I'm gonna try this. So I started taking vitamin D supplements, which is fine. I mean, a lot of people do, but the amounts that this program had me taking were insane. So the premise basically is that vitamin D, okay, it basically increases the levels of calcium that are going to be in the blood. Then you would also take vitamin K2. I mean, naturally, we know that these two go together. So vitamin D increases the levels of calcium in the body, and the K2 basically directs your body where to put this calcium so that it can be sent to the bones or wherever else it needs to go, as to not cause calcification of the blood and clog your arteries and all that jazz. The third step of the program actually had me using magnesium. So it suggested that you apply this to the skin. So I would basically make bottles full of water, and I would dilute the magnesium bath flakes in there, and I would spray this directly on my skin. And my skin, oh my God, this burnt so much. My skin would get so red, but it would also get so much better. So magnesium basically would be absorbed transdermally into the body. Basically really important in the whole process because magnesium basically helps convert vitamin D into its active form. So you could obviously take magnesium supplements orally, of course, but the program actually suggested applying them to the skin because by applying this diluted mixture, you're actually helping speed up the lesions themselves. So it actually promotes healing. It has antibacterial properties. So that's the reason why it's done that way. And like I said, it is absorbed transdermally. Now, overall, I wouldn't suggest trying this. If you want to try like an at-home sort of remedy, I mean, I guess you could. I just can't really attest to like the long-term effects of taking such high doses of vitamin D for such a long period of time. So if ever you guys end up roaming the internet and you come across this sort of thing too, does it work? Look, I did it for a good 5 or 6 months. It didn't eliminate my psoriasis. I didn't go into remission like all these people claim to have been put in. But it did help. It did help a lot. It managed it a bit more. I was not clear on my arms or anything, but I would say it went down about like 30 to 40%, which at the time, you know, I was gonna take whatever the hell I could get. It wasn't until actually last year around February, March, it really wasn't that long ago. It was less than a year ago that I met a new dermatologist and I literally cried. I bawled my eyes out in his office. I was there for another reason and I cried my eyes out and I started showing him my arm, showing him my body and showing him all these lesions that were on me. I was freaking out. I was getting married down south. I was gonna have to be in a bathing suit in front of everyone that I knew. My wedding dress that I bought was sleeveless, backless. So anyways, I was freaking out and he consoled my tears and told me that sometimes the stars align because he is the only clinic in my area who offers a treatment called phototherapy. And this term was very new for me. For the past few years and through the dermatologists that I had seen, they had never once mentioned something called phototherapy. So pretty much what it is UVB light treatments. Now it's controlled. It kind of looks like a tanning chamber, but it's not. The lights are different. And basically what it does is it kind of replicates the effect that you get from the sun that clears up your psoriasis. So I don't know if it's like, I know it's like a well-known remedy for psoriasis, but I don't know why it's not recommended by more doctors. Maybe it's because the clinics aren't available everywhere. Like there's only a limited number of clinics. So if you're not going to see a doctor who has that particular treatment to offer you, he might not suggest it. Like I really don't know how it works. And if anybody has any insight on that, I would appreciate it. But like I've suggested this to I don't know how many other people that have psoriasis. I tell them what I'm doing and how I'm clearing it up. And they're like, well, what's that? Like my doctor's never suggested it to me. I really don't know. I had a horseshoe up my ass. I happened to encounter the right doctor. He told me that in about like 12 to 20 treatments, I would start to see a very noticeable improvement, and I did. It's crazy. Like, look at these pictures here. So you're seeing here basically the lesions that I had shown you before I started these treatments. The middle was about like 20 treatments in, and then the right hand side of it here, I don't know if it's gonna be right or left when it's up on the screen, but anyways, the last picture that you're seeing here is pretty much a few months into my treatment. So it almost completely cleared up. If you look at my arms now, I mean, for the most part, I'm pretty clear. I have a few lesions. I have nothing really anymore on my chest. Sometimes I get a few on my neck, but I mean, it's nothing compared to what it used to be. The way that these treatments work is you go for treatments 2, 3, maybe even 4 times a week. For some people, it's the doctor who's going to prescribe how often you should be going. And my clinic works by walk-in anyways. I don't know if other clinics out there work by appointment, which would be really inconvenient because you have to go so often. But anyways, it's definitely a huge imposition on my daily life. I have to make sure that 3 times a week I manage to get to this clinic before they close, especially with work hours. Sometimes it can be very difficult. So I'm leaving on my lunch break sometime to go get these treatments. Sometimes, you know, especially with winter and traffic, I'm not making it there on time and I miss them. So anyways, it's definitely a huge imposition, but it's definitely worth it. And anyways, instead of keep talking about these treatments, I'm actually going to be heading to a treatment tomorrow. So I'm gonna take my camera and take you guys with me, and I'll introduce you to Jackie, who works at the clinic, and she'll be able to tell you guys a little bit more about the machine, what it does, why it works, and definitely want her to touch on how it's different than tanning beds, because I know a lot of people seem to think that they're interchangeable, but they're really not. So let's go, guys.
So I'm Jackie, I work in phototherapy. Dr. Pasmi. Basically what phototherapy does, it helps with a number of chronic skin issues, autoimmune skin diseases such as psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis, vitiligo, and a number of other skin issues. What it does basically is it's a light treatment that works with UV rays or UV lamps. It looks like a tanning booth. It's not a tanning booth. A lot of people think they can get a tan in here, but basically what the difference is that we use UVB lights, which are less or much safer than UVA lights. UVA rays penetrate more deeper into the skin, so those are the unsafe rays. You don't want that. These are much safer. What therapy does, it helps to relieve the itching, it calms inflammation, it helps to increase vitamin D production in your skin, and it also eliminates the need for topical steroids. So this is what a phototherapy booth looks like. The person would go in, and depending on the severity of their skin, sometimes they can do 30 seconds, they might do a minute, some can go up to 5 minutes. So it's basically UV lights, so not very good for the eyes, but just to show you, that's what it looks like. And the person would just stay in there for a few minutes and come 3 times a week, and eventually, hopefully, it would help their skin and reduce, at least manage what the problem is.
So yeah, guys, that is pretty much the treatment that I get done. I think the best part about these treatments is really seeing all the other people that go in and out of this clinic and realizing that you're not alone, because I totally thought before like I was a complete freak and it wasn't a normal condition, and I make friends now with this clinic. It's nice to have someone to talk to who understands exactly what you're going through, because they're going through it too. So it's definitely changed my entire world, and I will forever be grateful for having met this dermatologist who introduced this to me. Are there any side effects that I've noticed from using this machine? Your skin, especially at the beginning, can get really red, so they do start you off very slowly. So my first few treatments, I was only going in for like 30 seconds, I think, and then they slowly work you up. So you can definitely get burnt in these machines, so you need to be careful. Also, I'm a little bit more cautious too with using certain topicals. So I mean, I will sometimes still get flare-ups. It happens. There's external environmental factors or internal factors that cause me to have flare-ups, and I find that depending on the treatments that I'm using, I try to stick to natural treatments, because if I'm using stuff that like topical steroids, for example, I find that it increases the photosensitivity of my skin and I burn more and it gets really itchy. Beyond that, I would say that the only downfall to this whole treatment is that it takes so much time and so much consistency. It really takes a big commitment on your part. But if your condition is as bad as mine and it really affects everything that you do every single day, and it's causing tears and psychological damage like it did for me, you'll do whatever it takes. Like, my treatments come before everything. It comes before my social life. It comes before me going to the gym. It comes before anything and everything. Obviously, the downfall is if you miss treatments, like in my case. Anyways, maybe my case is just really bad, but if I miss a week's worth of treatments, my psoriasis will come back. So I actually did, and I took pictures and videos, and I'm gonna put them up on the screen here. So there was a period over the holidays where I think I only went to like 2 treatments total over the course of 2 weeks. So I started erupting in psoriasis again on my arms. You can see in the video over here, it was getting pretty bad, and that was only after like not long of missing out on my treatments. And then once I started going back regularly, I have filmed these videos, so you'll see them popping up on the screen here. every day basically after having gone to my psoriasis treatments, and you can see how effective this really is at clearing it up, how quickly it clears it up, and you get a nice tan in the process. So I mean, overall, I'm not complaining. In life, sometimes we're dealt the cards that we're dealt, and all you can do is try to make the best of it. So is the situation unfortunate? Is it an inconvenience? Is it an insecurity issue? Of course, 100% it is. Really, I've been dealt with every skin concern practically available to mankind. So I had severe acne, I have severe psoriasis, and one message that I really just want to get across with these videos is that your skin does not define you. It doesn't define who you are. And I know that I struggled with that for years. I would look at my body and I couldn't understand how someone could love me. I couldn't understand how my husband he was my boyfriend back then, how he still wanted to be with me, how he still found me attractive. I felt like, you know, I couldn't live normally. I couldn't wear a t-shirt or a tank top. I couldn't wear shorts. I couldn't go to the beach or to the pool with friends because God forbid I'd be seen in a bathing suit. I mean, people kind of look at you like you're a freak show when they see your arms and your legs and your stomach. I looked like I had some kind of disease, and people would look at you like, stay away from me. You look like you're contagious. So you just need to realize that you didn't choose to be born this way. You can make the best of the situation, or you can sit home and cry about it. And you know, obviously some days are easier than others. There are days sometimes when I have flare-ups and, you know, I'll just burst out into tears and uncontrollably, and I can't stop it. But it is what it is, and you can either sulk and hate yourself for it, or you can accept it and do what you can. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I mean, this is what my life is like living with psoriasis. I hope that anything that I mentioned in this video can help anyone. If you are from the Montreal area and you are interested in doing phototherapy, make sure to ask your dermatologist about it. Maybe if they can't help you, maybe they can refer you to a doctor in the city who can. I know there's a few clinics. There's one in the West Island where I go to. I think I've been told that there's one in Westmount as well as Laval. So definitely look into it. With that being said, thank you guys for watching my video. Remember to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.